All right, Azul. There's a pretty big tournament this weekend.
There is EUIC.
EUIC coming up, going to be the biggest tournament ever in Europe and probably ever in the western part of the world.
Yeah, it's gonna be the biggest tournament of all time. I can go look at the numbers right now, but it's like over 4,000 TCG players registered. I don't even know what the VGC number is. It's probably not. It's probably their biggest tournament ever as well. I don't think it's maybe 2K. Is 2K still a lot for VGC though? That still might
That
be
would
a
be a
lot.
lot, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah. So 4,137 TCG registered players.
And that
Pretty
does
big.
include all juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
So when the dust settles, probably because there will be some amount of no shows.
What minus how much are we like 250 for juniors and seniors? 250 for each or more?
Yeah, maybe
300?
three each, something like that.
We're looking at 3,400 minus like 100 no-shows? I feel like the no-show number isn't really that high.
It usually actually is for the ICs, and I think it's kind of a problem because some people
Mm,
literally just register to
yeah.
get the spectator kit.
Some people do that, and also probably there's a lot of probably FOMO. A lot of people probably register with the idea of like pretty unsure if they're gonna go or not. Um, yeah.
I
But
would
what do you
bet
3K.
3,200, 32,
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll be over 3K for sure, right?
definitely over 3K,
Yeah.
which makes it the
Ooh.
biggest tournament ever by a decent margin, to be honest.
Yeah, that's gonna be something, man. That's a lot of nerds, a lot of Poke nerds.
You're gonna be there too, buddy.
Hey, I didn't count myself out of the nerds. I'm there. I love playing some Pokemon TCG tournaments. That's just a lot.
There's a lot of nerds. Yeah, but it's gonna be a big one, and it is it's not the first tournament of this format, so we've got a little bit of information going in. Obviously, Merida just happened. Obviously, you won the tournament as well, and that definitely affected the meta quite a bit, I would say, because you won with Miraidon. I think Miraidon is now going to be solidly the second most popular deck in the tournament. It could make a running for first. I think it would be a lot for it to go from pretty low up to first. So I think it's going to be solidly second. Um, but it might push out what would have been a lot of other really popular decks of the tournament, being Lugia and Gardevoir, both decks that I think were expected to be pretty popular at this event. Now, who knows where they
Yeah,
stand?
I think it's definitely died down a little bit. I think you're right. I was like a little bit less confident in you and being Miraidon being number two, but Merida, what it's like a 2 week gap. The 2 week gap, I think, has a lot more opportunity for stuff to change. 1 week gap, not so much, but there was 2 week difference.
Yeah.
Um, so I think we can. I'm pretty confident with this placement, but I would put Dragapult. It's going to be the most popular deck. I also think it is the best deck in the format. Like I think Dragapult just is the best deck, and I think
Yeah.
it's. I think it's. We don't. I mean, it's called S tier. Call it tier one, but I would put Dragapult a tier above everything else in the format. I think still. I don't know how you feel about it.
I don't know that I totally put it a tier above everything else. I think it will be the most popular deck, and I think it has a lot of potential. I think a lot of very good players will probably play it, but I don't know. Like what we've seen from Dragapult, obviously it was good finishes in Merida, but like even in Japan's formats and stuff like that. Wait, did Dragapult win the Champions League they had in this format? The Badoo format? What happened in their Champions
Uh
League? Osaka, right? Was
oh yeah,
that
no, it
it?
was Archaladon versus Ancient Box in the finals.
Yeah. Like, it got pretty reasonably and heavily countered. I don't really feel that good about putting it in S tier. I don't think it feels like it's
I
it
don't.
will I think it will be the most popular deck, but we usually do these as like how
Yeah,
we
yeah,
rank
yeah.
these decks as plays for the tournament.
Well, I'm not saying. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't think it's an S tier deck, but I think it's like if you had, let's say, let's replace S with 1 to 5. I think like Dragapult's tier one, and then you go into tier two. So it's not S tier in terms of like Regidrago was last format, but I think it is the best deck in the format. And also, I will say, going to EUIC specifically, I think some of the target has shifted to Miraidon away from Dragapult. I actually think Dragapult is becoming a better play the more honestly, the more tournaments that happen in this format. We had Puerto Rico last weekend, right? Which I guess we didn't even talk about, did
We
we?
didn't even
We
talk
literally
about,
Puerto
yeah.
Rico. Which maybe we could like bring up that now to be honest. But Puerto Rico, Maridon won in Puerto Rico. Three Maridons can cut. There's still a Dragapult in there. A couple of Chaladons. Honestly, like the biggest not surprised, but like I think the biggest like thing to take note of, yeah, we completely forgot about Puerto Rico, was the Archaladons, both the two Archaladons and cut, to be honest. Um, yeah, I just think like Dragapult, I think it's the best overall deck in the format. I think there's just like less focus on it right now. So I think it's like actually lining up to be like a really strong play for EUIC. Less people are gonna be worried about it, to the extent that they were probably going into Merida. With that, which at Merida there was like 5 in top cut, right? I mean, none of them progressed past into top 8. Oh no, one did. Yeah, there was 5 in cut in Merida. One got 5th, 8 in Coos, and then the other 4 lost in ASIM. But still, I mean, 5 of them being in cut. There was also 5 Maridon in cut, so it was still kind of right along with it. But yeah, I don't know. I think Dragapult's lining up to be a lot more comfortable of a play moving forward to UIC. But yeah, that's how I feel about it overall. Like, I think I would
Well,
put it
if we're
above
I
play.
think, like, sure, it is a tier 1 deck, but we're going on this, like, S tier
So we could
rating
put it
thing.
in A. You can put it
Yeah.
in A.
I just don't I actually don't think that there's, like, an S tier play for this tournament.
Yeah, sure, sure. I don't know. I think Dragapult is overall the best play. Like, it just the matchup chart is just so wide. You can kinda just beat everything. Like,
Well, it has the most options, it feels like. Like, a lot of these decks are pretty one-dimensional a lot of times. Cerulege, Archaladon, even, like, Lugia and Miraidon can seem one-dimensional at times, right?
yeah, definitely.
Um, but it's so, like, it feels like maybe besides Gardevoir honestly, yeah, it probably does have more options than Gardevoir. I don't know, I just don't
Uh
feel like I really don't feel comfortable putting it as an S like, if we're going like, sure, it is, like, a tier 1 deck, right? But we're using this, like
Well, look, yeah, yeah, if we're doing the S tier thing, you could put it in A tier. I'm just saying I don't think I'd put anything in the same tier as it, is what I'm saying. In the same tier as Dragapult. I just put it, like, the tier above everything. It just has a tier between it and everything else.
so we just have to, like, think about how where I guess should have maybe talked about this a little bit more beforehand, like, how what is our methodology going to be for this tier list, right?
Well,
Because
it's for as for, like, a play for UIC still, like, what do we think are the how are we gonna rank these based on how good of a play we think they are?
I mean, I think there's stuff that's just as good of a play as Dragapult for EUIC.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. I think Dragapult is, like, the best play. Not by a lot, it just is the better overall play. Because like, even something like I think Maridon is the 2nd best play for the tournament probably, but, not as good as Dragapult. Dragapult could just have such a wider matchup spread, and I think if there was a little bit more of a target on Dragapult's back, I would probably put it alongside Maridon, but I feel like that has shifted, post Merida away from Dragapult, and I feel like it is a deck everyone's aware of, but it's like the Gardevoir players, they're gonna be like playing Klefkis and stuff for Maridon. You know what I'm saying? They're putting the extra tech card in for that matchup
Sure.
specifically.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can get on board with it. Percentage-wise,
This is actually something it's got to be decently high still. The meta is just so much more narrow than it was last format. It was what 18% at Merida.
yeah, I think so.
I don't think we have stats for Puerto Rico. It was still a 300% event in Puerto Rico as well. Um, Yeah, dude, I didn't even think to mention Puerto Rico because I thought it was the weekend before. For some reason, I thought there was a weekend separated. We already talked about Puerto Rico last week, but it literally was this weekend. So we
Bro,
don't have
shout
as
outs
much
to
to go off
Christian
of.
Solis here, holding it down for the Puerto Ricans against the flood of people coming in from the mainland USA. Like,
Yeah, everyone coming in from the states. Yeah, and he's able to maintain strong in Puerto Rico for sure.
um, what do you think? Like 15?
I think it could be 17 again, like 16, 17. I don't know.
I just
Maridon might.
I don't think there's a reason for it to be. It hasn't done anything to warrant it being that high. I don't think, and I
Yeah.
don't think it is. I don't. I really don't think it's this like step above that you feel like it is for the format.
Well, not by a lot though, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's just, like, solidly a better play than everything else, but not by, like it's not like Reggie Drago versus, like it's not like Reggie Drago was last format sometimes. Yeah.
Sure,
It's better than everything else just by, like, a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like I'm confident in saying that I think Dragapult is the best overall deck. Not by a lot though, it's just, like, a little bit,
sure.
just enough. But we
All
can give
right.
it 15.
I
I
think
don't know, I think once we start to put these percentages in, we'll probably have to beef up the numbers a little bit. But let's go with the number 2 deck, or I think what we both perceive to be the number 2 deck.
that's probably
John.
going to be Maridon.
Yeah. And this is why I think, like, also, like, I I think Miraidon has a pretty big target on his back, which is why I wouldn't put it alongside Dragapult. I think in comparison, that's why I put Miraidon under Dragapult a little bit because there will be the Klefkis and the Gardevoirs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think like Miraidon is a lower tier play than some of the other things in this list as well. Like, I don't think Miraidon has a particularly good Raging Bolt or Archaladon matchup. And I think those decks are going to be a little bit more popular because here's what I think is going to happen with this tournament. I think that Gardevoir is going to be a lot less popular, because it has such a hard time with Miraidon. Miraidon just did well. You just won with it, right? It's going to be way up there. And so Gardevoir is what kind of checks a lot of these like two prize beat stick decks.
Yeah,
Without Gardevoir doing well, and even people who choose to play it, like Miraidon, I think is going to be like a 12% meta share deck, something like that.
yeah.
Like, I think it's gonna be pretty popular. Like, they're not gonna have a good time in this field of Miraidons and in this field of Dragapult, which is gonna be the first most popular deck, which Gardevoir doesn't even have a good matchup into Dragapult. So Gardevoir is not gonna have a good time. That's gonna leave room for our Chaladons and Raging Bolts to do well. And Miraidon is going to get stunted, I think, by those decks a little bit. I think Miraidon is a B tier play for this tournament.
I don't know. I don't know if I go that far. I think your Archaladon matchup is pretty close to 50-50, if not slightly favored if you have Zapdos, and I think pretty much everyone has Zapdos at this point,
Yeah.
and that's what I've been recommending playing is the Zapdos in Miraidon. I think Archaladon is, like, a bigger threat moving forward, just the way things are playing out. Raging Ball the problem with Raging Ball is, like, you lose to so many things. You are favored against something like the Miraidon, but you're unfavored against Lugia, you're unfavored against Gardevoir. If we go down the list of some of the other matchups, it kind of becomes irrelevant because there's such low meta percentages. That's something you're worried about, like the Sarah Ledges and the Lost Boxes, even the Cloth Terapagos, which might be the most popular out of those three. It's like it does stack up eventually, and then even the Dragapult matchup. Honestly, I don't even know how that matchup goes for Raging Bolt, but you have so much more you can do with the Badoo in the Dragapult Dusknoir deck now that I wouldn't be surprised if that matchup is favorable or at least 50-50 for Dragapult Dusknoir. I want to say it's probably favored for Raging Bolt, but having not tested it, I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that like last format, it was one of the Raging Bolt being really popular is what kept like Dragapult, straight Dragapult, away from being super, super successful, right? It won that first regionals, like was I guess that was 2 formats ago now, right?
well,
Um,
I would say Drago did most of that work because Dragapult could not compete with Drago, but Raging Bolt didn't help it. I don't think either.
Sure, but I think that was like one of the reasons Raging Bolt started popping up and doing really well is because it does pretty decently into like Dragapult type decks, whether it's Regidrago or Dragapult itself. Now, Badoo I think definitely makes a difference, right?
Yeah,
Because they can clear their board of energy, and it's like, oh crap, I don't have a Dragapult. Okay, Iono Badoo, right? And that's
yeah,
like that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So
yeah.
I think I can't see it being worse than 50-50 for Raging Bolts.
Yeah, probably not. And I could even see it being pretty favored for Raging Ball. But even if it is like a 60-40, taking you lose to Lugia, you lose to Gardevoir, like I even mentioned those other decks, biggest one of those would being like Cloth Terapagos. Like, I don't think Raging Bolt really, even though you have your favorite against Miraidon, I would say you're definitely solidly favored against Miraidon as well.
I'm
I don't even
thinking
think with all that, I don't think that's enough. It's like sometimes we see that happen where it's like a deck kind of feeds off of another deck's success. I don't think Miraidon's like going to be that big where Raging Ball can feed off it that hard to kind of carry it up throughout the tournament.
I think we're
Um,
pretty split here on our opinions heading into this tournament, it feels like.
yeah, because I would definitely put Miraidon in A tier still, despite the target on its back. And I think if it when it loses the target, I think it probably is tied with Dragapult.
This is what I wanted to do, A and B for
No,
Miraidon.
I'm fine with that as well, but I wouldn't put anything in Dragapult's tier either, though.
I think there is stuff in Dragapult's tier.
What would you put in Dragapult's tier?
Archaladon.
I don't know. Our Archaladon has some flaws as well, though.
It definitely has some flaws, but I think that it's positioned really nicely. And I think we see that with this turnaround in Puerto Rico, right? Now, Miraidon's adding Zapdos definitely does throw a wrench in this for sure with the Archaladon. Like
I mean, Miraidon's
I think Archaladon is favored into Miraidon, and I think when you add Zapdos into the mix, it probably makes it like 50-50. I think that's where
yeah.
I'm at with it.
But see, that's my thing is when you look at that, like, how can you put it on Dragapult's tier when you look at this and you're like, well, Archaladon is unfavored against Lugia if they have rats. Maybe 50-50 if they only have a 1/1 wrap, but if they have the 2/2 wrap, I think you're struggling. You're unfavored to guard Vor. But then
Well,
you
I
look at
mean,
Dragapult,
I think Lugia is gonna be like a 5% deck, and I think Gardevoir is gonna be
I don't think
like
it's gonna be that low.
maybe not.
Jeez.
Okay,
Like, I do
like
think
7,
I was gonna say
7.
8 because it was like 12, I feel. Well, how what was it at Merida?
It
I
was
actually don't remember the
9
exact
in Merida, I'm pretty
only
sure.
9? Okay. Maybe it'll be like 8. I don't know. A lot of people have, like, committed to deck. Another thing is, like, I don't know how much people there maybe is a decent amount of response of people shifting decks after Merida, to be honest. So, like, Lugia and Gardevoir would be the 2 decks to look at that would probably drop off for sure. I do agree with that. I think they are worse plays going to EUIC than they were a week or 2 weeks ago. Um, they're worse plays, but I don't think the shift is gonna be like, super drastic. I could be wrong, though. And I would actually honestly like to see that because I would like to see a little bit more shift in the meta, like, as a response to what is doing well or, seems to be doing well. But, like, Gardevoir was, like, 13%, which is, like, pretty huge. But you still had, like, some like, there's still some stuff that was, like, Charizard was 9%, which kinda blew my mind. Even Raging Ball what was Raging Ball in this? Raging Ball was 7, which is, like, kind of whatever, to be honest. But, yeah, Charizard being 9%. But that also is, like, maybe has to do with it just being the first event, right? Like let people just hadn't like committed to like different decks or they still just kind of playing what they played last format.
Yeah, I think that's probably a lot of it. People have a deck that they've been playing for a few months and just kinda rolled with it, stuck with it.
Yeah, so I was gonna say my thing with our Chaladon being in the same tier as Dragon Ball, if you look at all these decks, the only deck that I would look at out of these that I would be like, Dragon Ball probably struggles against this is Regidrago. But even then, actually, I'm not sure because of Badoo. Is Raging Bolt maybe, but I'm not even confident in that matchup. It sounds like you aren't either. And that's about it. Otherwise, it's like 50-50 or better against literally everything. So
Yeah, I
like our
mean,
Chaladon, you can't say that.
this is all, like, no games, just, like, theory thinking about it, right? And
Yeah, we're definitely putting a lot of theory behind it.
I don't know. I mean, I could see Raging Bolt being up there with Dragapult, to be honest, as a play because, like, Gardevoir is gonna be down, and I know you're not gonna be on board with that at all.
I would put Raging Bolt in D tier.
But I D tier?
Yes.
Brother. I mean,
Well, I
I
think when
think
you see it fill out a little bit, because like I think I like our child on in B tier personally. Um, but then looking from here, it's like I don't think I would put Gardevoir or Lugia in B tier. So then they have to go into C tier. It's
yeah.
like, am I putting Raging Bolt in C tier besides Lugia and Gardevoir? And then like thinking about the matchup spreads of each deck, and it's like probably
No,
not.
you're putting them in A tier above Miraidon and Archelodon.
No. Wait, what? Lugia and Gardevoir?
No, Raging Bolt.
No,
We're
I don't
going
think so.
boom, boom, boom.
I
And
like
then D
those.
tier, we have like the Cerulege, Lost Box, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's why I do like having a 5th tier to work with as well, because I think there's, like I would like, something like Lost Box, I think is definitely, like, a better play than Sarah Ledge or even Regidrago, like, despite its
All right. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? I think we can generally, through discussion, come to a consensus on meta share. Let's go through and
issue.
think about meta share, and
7, 8
then we'll
for
each take
Arch.
a turn to make the tier list look like what we want it to look like.
Okay, but
And
can we put Dragapult in S tier, but it's not S tier, it's just tier 1, 2, 3, 4,
no,
5.
no, no. We're gonna pull everything down,
Okay,
and then
sure.
everyone's gonna get their turn.
Okay, alright, so you go so our child on 7, 8, right?
7. I was thinking 7.
Yeah, Sarah Ledge. What was Sarah Ledge at Merida, actually? That's I am
It
something
was
I'm
like
curious about.
almost 3, right? What was it? Or no, was it 4? Yeah, 4.3, 4.3.
I did hit 2 of them. I hit round 2 and round 3. Um
I mean,
Or I guess people are
yeah.
playing it. People it did actually just do there was one in top 8 at Puerto Rico. And then we didn't mention this either. There was the Korean League season 3 that happened as well. Maridon did win. Literally they were playing literally the exact same 60 was except a different Magnemite. And there was a Sarah Ledge I got second there. I don't know. Maybe there's something with Sarah Ledge. I don't think so.
There was this you showed me this 5th place deck.
I don't know about that. I like it, but it's like I don't know about that. There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
A lot of options. You got combos. You got combos.
combos exist for sure. Okay. Cerulege 4%, Gardevoir.
I think it's still like 10.
I just think it's gonna fall off massively. I think everyone who liked this deck
You
is
know?
not going to like this deck for this tournament at all.
I mean, you might not be wrong. It is possible. All right, then we'll give it like a.
I'm thinking like 5. I think it's like an insane fall off.
Eesh.
Yes.
Let's give it 6. Let's give it 6. I don't think the fall is going to be that drastic, but I think it's going to. I'm saying 10, but I could even see like 8. I don't know. Lost box 1. Don't really have to think too hard about that one.
Yep. Raging Bolt. I think people are gonna see the decks and, like, think that Raging Bolt is a decent play.
I
I
mean,
don't
this was
know.
already 7% at Merida, so, like,
I
that's already decent.
I don't think it's less than that ever.
We'll give it 7 then if you really wanna I'd I could see it keep coming down further. My biggest question, of course, is just still that Dragapult matchup. I just don't know how that fully plays out now that they have Badoo.
So
So,
after the last few tournaments here, there's really not been much success from Lugia at all. And it was
so much
anticipated to
Miraidon.
be it was anticipated to be a pretty popular pick for this format.
Yep.
Um, the Miraidon really just kind of holding it in check for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think at Merida, actually, one of the bigger things to me was just, like, a lot of Dragapults at Temple of Sinnoh, but also that matchup, once you have the Sinnoh, is better than I thought it was for Dragapult. Um So I think that's almost like I mean, there was obviously Murata was super successful at Merida, but I think that was almost like the bigger thing to stopping Lugia's success because you're never beating Miraidon. But it's like if you're also like 50-50 against Dragapult, what do you beat, right?
Yeah,
So now I think if you're 50-50 against Dragapult and Miraidon wasn't a deck in the format, you'd be fine as Lugia. But now you're just not great. But I think it's still going to be like 8% of the meta.
I was gonna say 5.
Jeez, you think they're just dropping off the face of the earth? I mean, I wouldn't be like I said, I
Most
guess
region they do
maybe I'm a
need
little
their
bit.
tournaments. I guess
I
that
might
is
be.
fair.
Also, that's another thing. Yeah, Europe hasn't had a tournament yet. Maybe I'm a little bit what is the word I'm looking for? Just like scarred from like how the meta has shifted previously, where like no one wants to put decks down. It's like Charizard can't be the best deck in the format, actually gets bodied. I'm gonna run it back, right? So it's like, I don't know, maybe that's how my but I feel like Lugia honestly is one of those decks that people are more it seems like people are more comfortable with putting down. Um so I like 7 though. I think I'm okay with 7. I think it could still be 10 though. Like I think Lugia and Gardevoir being 10% wouldn't like shock me.
I think it would shock me. We've got Charizard now. This is another
10% of
one.
Merida.
This is another one where it's like, okay, yes, you lose to Dragapults, but we've seen
Okay,
that
that's it. That's
that
it.
did not stop people in the last format. They lost to Reggie Drago.
Yeah, nothing stopped it. Well, but this is worse though. I think Dragon Ball actually has a better Charizard matchup than Drago did.
You're definitely right about that, and I think that's
Yeah.
one thing where it's like a good Charizard player could beat an average Reggie Drago player,
Yeah.
but I don't know that a
This is
good
tough.
Charizard player can beat an average
Dragon Ball.
Dragapult player. That matchup is bad.
Yeah. It was 10% at Merida. So maybe working with that, does it what come down to 5%? I want this thing to be 1%. I think Charizard should be 1% in this meta. Just Dragon Ball is too hard, but people are stubborn. And also, some of the Charizard crowd is going to make their way over to the Charizard Dragapult deck as well.
Sure,
But this
but
is just like pure Charizard.
also, some people are gonna look at this and be like, "Ooh, Miraidon's doing really well. Charizard is really good against Miraidon. There's these Ceruledge decks, this Archaludon, Raging
Are you
Bolt is
gonna
still
dodge?
popping up,
Yeah,
Lugia."
just dodge the best, most popular deck. Sure, go for it.
Yep, and
Like
that's what
it's
they've
just
been doing the last several
I,
tournaments.
what would you put before I say again?
You said 5.
How do you feel about 5?
I think it'll be more popular than Lugia, but not at
Ooh.
7. I think it's gonna be 7 Charizard, 5 Lugia.
Dude, that's crazy. I think Lugia is such a better play than Miraidon. Give
Let's
a
go
sec.
with 6. Lugia is
Okay.
a better play than Miraidon?
Yes. I think for sure. I don't think it's close. Like Dragapult is like the number one deck you have to like when you sit down to be like, okay, can this deck work in this format? The first deck you have to test against is Dragapult still. Like that's still
Yeah,
number one.
yeah, the people who think about it like that.
Sure. Do you think Miraidon could be the most popular deck at this tournament?
Yes.
It could be like 16% Miraidon,
I
14%
don't
Dragapult.
think it's going to be, but I think it could be.
All right,
Like,
Reggie
I
Drago,
wouldn't be surprised if it was. Reggie Drago, what was it
1%.
in?
1%.
It was 3% in Merida.
See, Reggie Drago went from like the most popular deck in the format to 3% in Merida, but then Charizard still stuck around at 10%. What the heck?
Charizard's just he's different, bro.
Yeah, but Drago's actually a good deck. Well, no, Drago's like not a well. Charizard's a good deck as well. Let me take that back. Drago is like such a more powerful deck though. Like it's more often when you're picking between two bad plays, you're going with the more powerful play. That's the Drago. All
I
right,
think there's
Drago,
definitely some, like, good players that have been
Luke and Drago.
cooking Drago for
Yeah, I
sure.
could see it. I wouldn't be surprised to see if like Drago is actually not. And this is like deck that I have no experience with in this format. I don't have a good a take on this at all. I think the deck is very good still. It just seems like Dragapult with Badoo or Badoo in general is like too much to deal with. Maybe though, but maybe it's not. Um, yeah, maybe Drago is a kind of a sleeper going into this weekend.
Yeah, but I don't
One
think it's
percent.
more than 3. I was gonna say 2, yeah.
Yeah, it's given two. Sonic Stall 1%.
Pidgeot 1%, maybe
Yeah, you do
2.
hit him with the 0.5.
Let's give it the 1.
All right, Cloth 2 to 3 is what I'm thinking. Did recently top 8 in
It's had decent numbers, like, success-wise, I should say.
top
Um,
aided Merida, top aided Puerto Rico. Oh
Cloth
no,
was
not
2% in Merida.
yeah, it did top 8 Puerto Rico. I think we give it 2.
Give it the 2. Okay.
Maybe it's a 3 though.
So
Okay, but
we're accounting for 71% of the meta
yeah,
in this, by
which
the way.
isn't a lot.
Normally, I feel like we get up into, like, the high 80s.
Yeah. Also, the meta is more narrow, so we're actually looking at a lot more decks that are going to be played than we normally do. So I would say like I'd give Dragapult and Miraidon another percentage point at least. I'd throw at least one more to Gardevoir. 6% is I feel like is criminal. I don't know. I feel like you maybe are disrespecting the Guardy cult right now a little bit with your take. To be honest, they believe it can beat anything no matter what, and if they don't think it can beat it, they believe that they'll get lucky. Like they don't like. There's not.
Well, they believe that they're better than their opponent.
That is also true. They'll tell you straight out, "I auto lose or the Regidrago matchup is bad. Imma win this anyways," and they go in there and they get the dub. So and they also do it as well. They also
Yeah,
have been very successful, the Guardy cult. So,
they back it up.
yeah, shout out their leader, Henry Chow. But, yeah, like, I think Henry Chow is going to this tournament. I'm not 100% sure. I would be surprised if he didn't play
He
Gardevoir, you
is, he
know?
is.
So, yeah, I'd be very surprised if he didn't play Gardevoir. So, they're still gonna try and make it work. The Guardy cult always finds a way.
Alright, you go ahead. You make the list how you want it to be.
All right, so Dragapult tier 1, not tier S, but put it up there, and then give me a Miraidon, and then under that, give me Archaludon, uh, and Clofterapagos, and then
Okay.
under that, give me Lugia and Gardevoir.
Under?
Yeah.
Bro,
What?
so much of this like, this discussion started from you didn't wanna put Lugia and Archeops and, Gardevoir these many tiers below these other things. You said, "Am I really gonna put Gardevoir below Archaludon?" That's what you said.
Is that what I said?
I think so.
No, I don't think so. I don't think I said that.
I might be trolling.
I think you are trolling. I don't remember saying that. It is possible I said that, but I don't remember saying it. I don't think so. If I did, I maybe meant it in a different way.
Okay.
Um
Someone check the tape. Check
I would
check the
actually
footage.
put Gardevoir in B though, actually. Put Gardevoir in B. It's definitely better than Lugia. And then scroll down a little bit as well. And then from here, I would put Sarah in D, Raging Bolt in D, Charizard in D, uh Stall, I'm a little bit iffy on to be honest. I just had no experience with it in this format, so I don't have like a super strong opinion. But probably D. Just go and throw it in D. Control is probably like C or B, but so I throw it in B. Throw it in B. I think if you're probably good with control, it's probably a B. But of course, like that's like just kind of like a Hail Mary or whatever you call it. And then I put Drago and Lost Box in C because I think they're very powerful decks. The one thing I will say about Lost Box is if you think you have a 50-50 against Dragapult, Lost Box is the BDIF. If you truly think Lost Box is 50-50 against Dragapult, if you know that, then Lost Box is just actually the play. But my untested analysis of the matchup is that it's unfavorable, like solidly unfavorable against Dragapult Dusknoir. So that's why I don't like the deck too much. But if you know better than me, then you have the BDIF and you're winning EUIC. And Drago, it gets hit by Badoo, obviously. I feel like it has a pretty bad Dragapult Dusknoir matchup. But once again, it's another one of those decks where it's like it's just more powerful than the decks in D tier, right? Like if I'm gonna play a deck, even if it has a bad Dragapult matchup, I'm just playing something powerful. Regidrago's powerful. I still like it above the stuff in D.
Alright.
All right, that's it, Chip. Go
My
ahead.
turn. Let me get my fingers in here. Alright. No S tier play. We're gonna leave
Tier
Dragapult up
one,
here.
tier one. It's just five
S tier. No,
tiers.
I'm going by what it says on the screen.
Okay, I wasn't.
So I think Miraidon is down here below a lot of this other stuff. I think Gardevoir also down here, probably with the Miraidon. Lugia, all this seems fine. Pidgeot, I actually think Snorlax could be like low key a pretty decent play. I don't know if I'd put it all the way up in B tier.
That's yeah.
Um, but I think it's definitely better than like a D tier play. The stall, the Pidgeot, I'm gonna put in C tier as well, but I'm sure Sander is gonna show up and get at least top 16 with the deck.
Well,
And
but
we're
it
gonna
could be. Who knows what he has in there though.
yeah, we're gonna throw Raging Bolt up here. We'll throw Cloth down here. We'll throw Charge. Actually, Cloth we'll throw in the C tier, and we're going.
Dude,
"Mm."
I don't think the meta is as fluid as you think it is. I think you
Let me
just
think. Let me
disrespect
think. Let me
Dragapult.
cook. Let me
All right,
cook. Let me
Lala
cook.
cook.
Let me cook. We're gonna throw Drago. I don't like it as much, and Lost Box. I don't like it much either, and Charizard.
I
I
just
just think
realized that this would be hard for the audio listeners to figure out what's going on for our tier list, to be honest.
there's not that many as many audio listeners because we have video on Spotify.
Oh, okay,
Well,
that's
actually, I
true.
don't know. I don't know. Spotify listeners, let us know. Do you actually watch or do
I feel like
you
a lot of people who use Spotify are like doing it while they're driving and stuff. So hopefully you're not watching.
that's fair.
Turn it
Don't want.
off. If you're watching, turn it off. Come
We'll
on.
recap. We got the Dragapult Dusknoir, we got the Archaludon in A tier, no S tier play. We got Raging Bolt, we got Charizard in B tier. We got in C tier Miraidon, Gardevoir, Lugia, Snorlax, Pidgeot, Cloth. I can see I don't hate your call of putting Cloth up in like the second tier wherever you had it. And then Sarah Ledge, Regidrago, Lost Box. That's mine. I'm gonna lock it in. Going with this. Feel
Yeah,
good about it.
my big takes on Cloth and Archaludon is that like two of their harder matchups, Lugia and Gardevoir, are way worse because of Miraidon, so it makes the decks better.
Yeah, but that
That's my
doesn't
big
matter whenever it's the truth for Archaludon and Raging Bolt. So,
truth for Archaludon and Rage. Well, yeah, I guess. Sure. I mean, you have Archaludon up there with Dragapult. I don't know about that. That's kind of wild.
but you literally just said that Cloth is better because Gardevoir and Lugia are worse, which is the exact same reason I said Archaludon and Raging Bolt are both better.
Oh no, Reggie. But they have so many more flaws. Like the cloth deck is like actually a good deck. Like,
Bro,
well, Archaludon's fine as well, but I think Archaludon's more meta dependent. A little bit more meta dependent.
this is what I'm locking in right here. I feel good about
Broken.
it.
All right. Let us know in the comment section who you thought had the better tier list.
This is by far the most split we've been on a tier list.
For sure. I feel like yeah, I feel like we're usually on the same page pretty much.
Yeah.
Sure. And
It
even
also
in the meta percentages as well, we're like, why like you think Lugia and Gardevoir are just gone. I think they're still gonna be around, hanging around a decent amount. But honestly, I'm down for like Charizard and Raging Ball to actually be better than I'm like giving them credit for. I feel like Dragapult is a little bit more polarizing than you're giving it credit for.
yeah, and that definitely could be true. And I would not be surprised to see like I wouldn't be super shocked to see because at the end of the day, it's like whatever the best players choose to play is what's going to succeed the most. And if a lot of really good players just end up playing Dragapult, like we just saw Brent and his testing group, the Australians, like that's one of the best, if not the best testing group in the world right now.
Yeah.
They always just play whatever like a good list of whatever the best deck is. And if they
Yeah.
think that that's Dragapult, I would not be surprised to see 3 of them in top cut,
Yeah.
with Dragapult.
I
So,
also saw Moffat tweet out this week or last week. He's like, going to 2025, I'm just playing the BDIF every single tournament. I'll be interested to see. I guess it'll be interesting to see. I think Moffat is going. It'll be interesting to see if he actually thinks Dragapult is the BDIF or if he's already going back on his word. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I agree. Like if you just have a lot of really good players choosing to play Dragapult, if all of top 80 is Dragapult, I would not be surprised. Like that wouldn't be a shock. That's a
I'd be
lot,
a
but like you
little
know what I mean.
surprised about that.
Like,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
6 of the top 8 or something, 4 of the top 8 or something.
Sure.